Welcome back to our channel. On today's video, the new map of GTA 6 features prominently Southwest Florida. At least that's what a lot of people think, since the trailers are still being expected. I'm going to show you a realistic rendering of what I think this video game would look like if it were in fact to depict South Florida in an accurate way. Personal opinion disclaimer, I have no association with Rockstar or this video game. I'm just going to show you guys what I think the video game should look like if it's going to depict Southwest Florida accurately. Now, Southwest Florida is one of the safest places in the United States, so a video game about crime really makes absolutely no sense to be in this type of setting. But this is what people are expecting to see. And if you guys are familiar with Southwest Florida, you know that we've already been depicted in several movies and video games. The Adam Sandler movie Leo takes place in the city of Fort Myers. And as we know, the video game Roblox is literally a building by building, tree by tree renditioning of Bonita Springs, Florida, which is between Naples and Fort Myers. This is the area I actually grew up in, so it's weird to see the places I grew up in so many movies and video games. And GTA 6 is probably the most anticipated video game you could think of. Roblox even went as far as having a perfectly identical rendering of a Fort Myers Police Department vehicle, even though it wouldn't be in Bonita Springs. But whatever, you get the idea. Some of these video games get very realistic and very accurate with their settings. I don't think Rockstar is going to do that, however, with this video game. However, we have seen that the missions that you do on Roblox are the same exact missions people in real life actually went on in Bonita Springs, Florida. So despite this being a freaking video game, we can expect that some of the things that are portrayed in the video game will actually lead to real life events in the streets of South Florida if the map featuring Southwest Florida actually becomes the actual video game map. So as stupid as this may sound, you can actually expect this video game to have real life implications on the places they depict. We can of course expect things like the southern style of vehicle tuning, like the squatted pickup trucks, lifted trucks. There's a lot of anticipation on exactly how vehicles will be portrayed in this video game. I recently did a video of the people of the Everglades where I interviewed this gentleman right here, and that video is up to 130,000 views. And a lot of people are telling me the reason they're watching my Everglades videos is in anticipation for this video game. So it only makes sense that if people are coming to my channel to learn more about the Everglades and about South Florida because of this video game, that my channel, the one that was already featuring all these places, would be the first one to have an opinion on what this should look like. So I'm doing this because my channel is already trending because of this topic, even though it's completely unrelated. People are just genuinely interested in what this area of Florida actually looks like in anticipation for the video game. And with small towns like Everglades City and Clewiston possibly featured on the video game, a lot of people are really curious. They want to know what this video game would look like, and with really few indications from Rockstar, we don't know. That's why I'm going to give you my personal opinion, my rendering of what I think this will look like. And most of the curiosity doesn't come from the actual city of Miami. We already seen Miami in countless video games. People are curious, what does Everglades City look like? What does the Florida Everglades look like? What do these small towns in Florida look like, since they generally believe that these towns are going to be in the video game? And that is what we're going to be looking at today. We know that the Everglades is packed with wildlife. Of course, the alligators, the deer, the black bears, and we're going to expect that we're going to have a lot of trails through the woods where there could possibly be alligators. So swimming with alligators is possibly on the top of things people want to do, assuming the rural areas outside of the city are going to be depicted accurately. And let me just mention that I don't think you should buy this video game for your children. There's a reason these video games are rated for adults, and if you have children and they want this video game, I would offer them an alternative idea, like we'll take you to Hawaii or Puerto Rico if you don't get the video game. I really don't see why You should inflict upon your children to be exposed to so many bad things. To me, this video game is absolute garbage. I'm only showing it to you guys because I know there's a lot of anticipation. And well, we've been covering South Florida for so many years, so not gonna lie, while I definitely will not buy this video game, I am curious to see how exactly they're gonna depict places like Naples, Florida, my hometown. And I'm really certain that the vast majority of the interest revolving around this video game simply has to do with the things that have never been featured on video games before, like the Florida Everglades, cities like Naples, small towns. These types of things people are anxiously awaiting because after all, we've all seen Miami on video games. We know what that looks like. It's those small towns and how they're going to be depicted that a lot of people are anxiously anticipating, especially since Southwest Florida is starting to pop up on movies, video games, left and right. There's a lot of anticipation to how this area will be depicted. All of a sudden, I've been seeing a flood on my channel of comments like this, that they're coming to my channel for GTA 6 reasons, since it's rumored that most of Southwest Florida will be in one way or another depicted in this video game. I will personally like to know how they're going to feature the animals, the wildlife, the fishing, which has already been part of other video games from Rockstar. And well, how will the actual people be depicted? I'm going to assume with this video of mine depicting this gentleman having 130,000 views, this is what an authentic person from the Florida Everglades would look like. No shoes, no shirt, just out there in the wild, likely friends with alligators and freaking black bears. I've even had people tell me that some of the real life people that I've interviewed are actually going to be characters in this video game, and I don't know if there's any truth to that. Only time will tell. But I can say that overwhelmingly how the landscape, vegetation, and nature of Florida is depicted is one of the things that people are most really excited to see about this video game. And of course, the unique personalities that are down here in South Florida. The housing styles, this is what a house in South Florida would look like, is also important. Are they going to depict the actual styles of houses that we have here in Florida? They did a pretty accurate job with the California versions of the video games, so we can expect people to be curious on how exactly houses in Florida are going to be depicted. And are they going to be depicting suburban areas? Since video games in the past were so much revolving around older neighborhoods and neighborhoods that were historic and things that were near downtowns, with this video game's map stretching far off into the suburbs and into the woods, we can expect that the suburbs have to be accurately depicted. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to how the style of houses that we have in Florida will be depicted. And then real life events as well that are kind of endemic to the area. We have the iguana problem, we have Africanized bees. There's so many invasive species in Florida like these Africanized bees. Will you get attacked by Africanized bees if you're in an area that would have that? How are the beaches going to be depicted? Which beaches are going to be depicted accurately? In the case of the California video games, we've seen very close renderings. Will that be the place for beaches like Naples and Fort Myers? We'll have to wait and see. One of the maps that's circulating on the internet shows Naples, Florida, my hometown, depicted as Napoleon Beach. And while these maps, nobody really knows which one it's going to be. Sure, people claim that Naples will be depicted like on this map here, but so far we haven't really seen an exact rendering of what it's going to be. And it's all leaked information that I've seen some videos and it doesn't seem like it's authentic. So there's definitely a lot of theories out there. How white women are going to be depicted is very important to a lot of people. With the California versions, we've seen women depicted as hood rats. That, of course, is not in accordance with what you're going to see in Florida. And we can expect more tropical looks, more hats, more white women, just more like what you would actually see in real life versus what the California hood rat looks like in most of the other video games. It really wouldn't make sense for them to grab characteristics of California and try to play them off as authentically a Florida thing. So that will also be an interesting thing to see. Fort Myers, Florida will be depicted as Fort Misery. At least that's what a lot of people are claiming. Now, Fort Myers, of course, is indistinguishable. Fort Myers has its own unique vibes. It has its own unique character. And we can expect that Fort Myers whether it's called Fort Myers or Fort Misery, could possibly even depict some hurricane damage if they want to really accurately depict what that city looks like. Whether Fort Myers will actually be depicted as Fort Misery in these video games is yet to be determined, but what we do know is that for a lot of people, they're taking it as a fact that Fort Myers, aka Fort Misery, will definitely be depicted in this video game. Without a doubt, if they were going to depict Fort Myers, we would have to see the neighborhood of Palm Beach Boulevard, an accurate depiction of downtown, and of course, the beaches and nightlife. Most of South Florida has royal palm trees, and we can expect that they're going to have to include royal palm trees in the video game if they want it to be considered somewhat accurate, as well as more of a southern redneck personality. We know the famous Florida man, you loot, I shoot. If you loot, we shoot. Those types of hurricane, local Florida antics. Palm trees could be on the ground with coconuts that you can reach and use the coconuts as weapons. Who the crap knows? But of course, the distinctive features of Fort Myers, if it is featured in the video game, are expected to show up. One of the maps doesn't seem to include Bradenton and Sarasota. It hops from Fort Myers right on to Tampa. So an entire section of Southwest Florida simply doesn't exist. We know we can expect the downtowns and beaches to be put out accurately, but what about the trailer parks? What about those small antics of South Florida? Those are the types of details people are awaiting from this video game, because again, how accurately it is depicted will make a huge difference in how much respect people will have for this video game, those that are enthusiasts about it. Even though, like I've said before, personally, I don't like this video game. And if you're a parent, I want to advise you that you really reconsider whether you're actually going to get your kids this game. I remember growing up, my parents would have never let me have a video game like Grand Theft Auto. They forbid me from having this video game, and even though they forbid me from having it, I still got my hands on it. A lot of times, when you tell kids they can't do something, then they just want to do it even more. But I really want to advise parents to really think hard on whether they're going to let their kids be put onto just a horrible video game that just depicts basically all of the things you would want your kids not to want to be doing. Critics are definitely going to be watching out for hurricane damage, perhaps not throughout the entire video game, but little details of hurricane damage would make a lot of sense, and it would make sense for Rockstar to adjust some of the existing scenes and make them look like there's some type of recent hurricane damage, because I think critics will definitely be looking out for those types of details. But regardless of what the cities are going to look like, I think one of the biggest curiosities simply is the Florida Everglades. The Florida Everglades is a mysterious place, and the off-roading activities, airboat rides, and all the other things that happen as recreational activities in the Everglades like fishing, a lot of people are expecting are going to be in some way or another incorporated into the video game. In the California version, most of the rural landscape was nothing more than mountains, and we don't expect a video game to be completely flat, as is the nature of most of Florida. Completely flat. We can expect the canals to have some type of topography, some type of raised elevations. There has to be some type of off-roading activity, and we can expect small details like seeing clear streams with fish in them to be depicted in the video game as well, with, of course, alligators that could probably attack you while you're out there doing those outdoor activities. Without a doubt, how the Everglades is going to look like and how accurate that area will look like is something people are definitely anticipating, as well as the outdoor activities and how closely they will resemble the realistic scenes of Florida. Swamp buggies, ATVing, and those natural settings, especially at night and when the sun goes down, those little details are stuff people look out for. It is believed that the city of Everglades City will be accurately depicted in the video game, and as we know, the real history of Everglades City has a lot to do with smuggling, so it is possible that there could be missions in Everglades City that relate to smuggling. After all, that is what the town is known for in real life. So there's no doubt that if a video game is made as this area, it's going to depict that. The Florida Everglades is also probably going to have a lot of crazy wildlife, and it would make sense for them to include giant snakes, sharks, who knows what else could be depicted as threats to you as a video player in this video game while you venture out into the Florida Everglades. And of course, without a doubt, the specific architecture of this area is unique to anywhere in the United States. South Florida coastal communities really do have a specific look, and Rockstar does a pretty good job based on the California games on depicting all that. One of the maps that's out there is depicting the small town of Clewiston as Sugarton, which would make sense because it really is the sweetest town in America. That is the model of Clewiston, Florida. And many people believe that Clewiston will be featured as Sugarton, a town where the entire economy goes around sugar production and other activities of the like. You can expect that you'll be able to drive a tractor through this part of the video game. And of course, all of the other infrastructure that goes along with sugarcane, like sugarcane fields, the places where they process the sugar, all that you can expect to be accurately depicted in this video game if they're actually going to have Clewiston, as well as their downtown, which is somewhat insignificant, but definitely characteristic. We're going to expect a lot of abandoned gas stations and, of course, very tall palm trees, in particular Royal Cuban palm trees, to be depicted in these rural parts of South Florida, surrounded by fields of sugarcane, tractors, and of course, the historic and iconic look of the historic homes of this area, which are definitely indistinguishable. They're very specific styles of architecture. We can expect the town of Clewiston to make a very interesting place to explore if the video game actually depicts it accurately. And of course, South Florida is in the south, so the vehicles are definitely going to look different here. Big rims, candy paint, donks, old school caprices. Those are the types of things we are known for in the South. So we can expect that at least the car scene in this video game will be more accurately depicting the big candy, big rims, and of course, squatted trucks. These are, after all, the staples of car culture in South Florida. And if that were not to be depicted accurately in the video game, then that would be a huge failure. We can definitely expect big rims, candy paint, and of course squatted vehicles to be a huge detail that cannot be overlooked. California is known for lowriders. Florida is known for classic Chevys on big rims, candy paint, and let's not forget those disgusting squatted trucks. It is the current fad in Florida. That's the fashion, and that is aesthetically what people are going to be expecting from transportation modes out of this video game. So if you're anticipating Grand Theft Auto 6 and you're wondering what it should actually look like, I think this video will give you a great idea of a very realistic rendering of what Florida looks like in cartoon mode. The brain is like a sponge that absorbs everything in its environment, and if you spend a lot of time playing video games that depict violence and crime, those types of activities are going to infiltrate their way into your brain, and I definitely recommend that you avoid this video game. We've seen already in Southwest Florida how other video games have actually done real life changes to our communities, as people who play the video game come to our community and think that they can do the things they carried out in their video games in real life in our communities. It was crazy when the snowbird season came around and we got to see right after the release of Roblox how many kids came to Southwest Florida to go to the places that they saw in the video games and do the things that they were doing in the video games in real life. And to the locals that live here, it was absolutely mind-boggling to see just a bizarre thing take place. And unfortunately for us who live in South Florida, the real-life places that are depicted in this video game will have real-life people show up and try to recreate their video game activities in our communities. And let me tell you that Grand Theft Auto Rockstar is a lot bigger than Roblox. So the madness that we saw in Bonita Springs right after the release of Roblox, you can expect that with Grand Theft Auto, it will be a much larger pain in the butt for us here in Florida. And we can expect the boards of tourism and local law enforcement agencies to be very upset as well. After all, they're trying to portray Florida as a very safe and great place to live because that brings in a lot of money. But with this video game, chances are it's going to depict South Florida as a crime-filled ghetto, and that's possibly not the way these local law enforcement agencies and boards of tourism would like South Florida to be depicted. And again, while these video games are not real, let me just remind you that with other video games, we've seen how people want to reenact their video games in the places that they take place. And that's possibly why Rockstar is being very careful to not label things exactly for what they are, since they know that portraying these places in a way that is not the way law enforcement and of course these media tourism boards would like to portray Florida as is definitely going to receive some local opposition. Of course, people are definitely going to play this video game and they are definitely going to want to go to the places depicted there. So if you believe that this video game will not have real life implications on the streets of South Florida, boy, are you in for a surprise. Despite the fact that it's just a video game, today people believe that the things they do on their computers are the way things actually work in real life. And we can expect that a lot of people will try to reenact these video games. I mean, we've even seen the gas station featured on Roblox has been robbed back to back since the release of the video game, since that's one of the missions you do on that game. We can expect this video game will in fact have real life implications for us here in South Florida, and perhaps the way they depict our communities isn't exactly the way we actually see our communities here. I can already see Sheriff Marcino from Lee County making a speech about how Fort Myers is not Fort Misery, and if you come to our community, whatever Grady Judge has already been saying but re-scripted horribly.